the Power Hour. And Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler is out today, but sitting in for him is my friend, former college classmate. She is a lawyer, former radio show host in both Connecticut and New York, the great and the awesome Antonia Soros Thompson. How you
Good
doing this morning?
morning. Good, good. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Friday. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. We are now in the 5th day of Black History Month.
Yes.
And we are going to do a little bit of Black History fact later on in the show. For today, I like to find those obscure pieces that nobody knows what these things are. You know, because we normally talk about Rosa Parks, we talk about Martin Luther King, we talk about, great civil rights leaders, but every day is Black History Month, and every one of us is constantly making Black history. And so we need to talk about those folk that nobody else ever really seems to get around to talking about. So we're grateful to be able to be here on the airways with you this morning. And we got, a little bit of stuff to talk about today. Some things happening in the news that are impacting us as Black folk in America. And so we want to touch on that. And then there's, some things that people don't know that are kind of quietly happening behind the scenes. And we want to talk about those things as well. But I want to talk about a couple of things that are really important to us this morning to start off, an experience that Antonia had last night. But before we do that, do me a favor. Well, first of all, good morning, Kawesa. How you doing out there?
I know. Hey, Kawesa.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, good. Thank
Good,
you.
good.
And thank you for doing everything that you do every day on this station.
Right.
By the way, you're making Black history every day that you come on, the only Black-owned talk station in the
That's
state
right.
of Pennsylvania.
Thank you for what you do, Kawesa.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you. All right. Do us a favor. If you are in front of us right now, why don't you go ahead and hit that share button on Facebook and let folk know that you are watching us live right now on Facebook. Hit the share button. Let folk know that you are out there watching the show with us. And then if you would also, you can also hear us on 96.1 FM, 900 AM. You also can watch us on YouTube, on WURD Radio, on YouTube. Let folk know that we're out there. And you can also have the app. You have the WURD Radio app that you can check out as well. You can find us in all different ways to join us. And we appreciate all of you already that are checking in on Facebook. Hey, Gary, Kenesha, Kenrick, Aunt Young is out there. Ed Minner, good morning, Ed. Appreciate you all checking in and listening with us, even on the app right now. On Facebook right now, and all the other ways that you are checking in with us. Okay. So let's start. We're going to start with some really exciting and positive stuff that happened last night. So, Antonia, tell us about your experience when you had the chance to listen in on the indomitable, powerful, the wonderful Stacey Abrams.
Yes, and I don't know if any of our listeners out there were able to participate virtually with the Civil and Human Rights Award banquet. Of course, it was held virtually for the union. The union I'm part of here is UAW in the 9A region. And as they hosted this event, the guest speaker and, the awardee was Stacey Abrams. So I was very excited when it was announced that she was going to be the guest speaker, because it's the closest I'm ever going to get to her, to hear her live. And as, she was amazing. She was wonderful. And what was interesting about the evening, and, I participate in the union through the years that I've worked for the city. But this is the first time I attended one of these events, virtual, probably because it was virtual. They probably had a really big turnout, because that's something that's come out of COVID is people are more engaged because it's easy to access some of these things.
Sure.
But I was just really, surprised how many politicians showed up. Chuck Schumer, all of our representatives here in Connecticut were on the call. Some really big wigs in the union showed up. But again, they were talking, as the labor force. The ones that are out here doing the work. And we come in numbers and we come in full force. And she talked a lot about how the labor movement has been behind her and that we are the #1 resource for her when it comes to what happened in Georgia and the work that she's doing. So it's really interesting and amazing. I mean, she's just wonderful. I think everything we hear about her is true. She's just very authentic, very real, and just very committed and dedicated to the work of empowering us as Black folks and people in general, but more importantly as Black folks to get out there and vote. So I was definitely moved. I sat there like,
You were
oh,
saying she was sharing a story about her dad getting arrested at 14 for
yeah,
helping somebody vote.
her inspiration for doing this. And I think how she grew up and what inspired her was her dad. I think he was, 14, very young, was arrested going to vote, but he was just going to help someone to get to the polls to vote. And
Hmm.
he was arrested for not doing anything. And so she was raised in a household, and her mother was a big activist of voting rights. So she just, grew up in that environment of just get it done because it's that important to be able to go do it and get your vote in. So it's just really interesting to start at a very young age to have that work ethic of, do it just not for me, but do it for everyone. And she laid out her plan of what she thought of how this election was going to go around and who and how she needed to get people galvanized to do it. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
Amazing. I'd work for her.
I'm very jealous. I just want you
Yes,
to know that. I'm
oh,
very jealous.
and wonderful. I sat there with my cameras taking pictures of my screen. And, eventually I was saying to my daughter, come listen, this is amazing. And she's like, you do know how close you are to the screen, mommy. Like, you need to step back. But I was like, no, if she was in front of me, I'd be right up at the stage. I'd be high-fiving her, like, touch my hand. So it was great. It was wonderful. It was really, so I don't know if folks were out there that were able to dial in if you're part of the union to listen to that, because I think it was open to the public. It was open to everyone. And they had a really good turnout. So that was awesome.
So we should also say that, we mentioned this the other day, that she has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Right.
As
That's
the
right.
modern day civil rights leader in America and really protecting democracy. And, I'm all for that. All for that. So definitely want to make sure that, we continue to celebrate our heroine, who is really leading the way. As you said, a lot of the politicians showed up. You mentioned that Chuck Schumer has showed up, but I'm like, yeah, Chuck Schumer's the majority leader because of Stacey Abrams right now, right? Honestly, bottom line, he has
he was
his
going to show
job
up.
because of Stacey
He was going to
Abrams
show up. Mm-hmm.
and the work that happened in Georgia with Fair Fight and the work that they did. Keisha Lance Bottoms, who's the mayor of Atlanta, and Forte, who is the executive director of the New Georgia Project, which was founded by Stacey Abrams, and then Stacey Abrams and Fair Fight. 3 black women saved the union. That's that's not original thought. I actually saw that in an article, but it's really like how black women saved the democracy. So I think that's deeply powerful, and just thinking about that. And I see Sheriff Rochelle Bilal is listening to us today here from Philadelphia, and I'm thinking about powerful black women that have really changed politics and our democracy, and even at the local level, state level, the national level, and really thinking how powerful that is. This is, I keep telling folks, I was like, this is the age of the black woman, and long overdue.
Long overdue, because it's always been there. We've always been doing the work,
always
right?
doing the work,
Always doing the work, and it's never easy. It has never come easy for the black woman, and even all these women that you're talking about, right? There's so many parts of their career and their path that we could see the difficulty, the decisions that they had to make, with their families, with their careers, where they went to school, and for them to achieve the level that they have achieved is just phenomenal. Just wonderful, wonderful role models for our daughters, our sons, all our young kids out there to say, you know what? They'll throw things at us, but we got to just keep it moving and be successful. So all amazing women.
Wow. You are a reminder to me of all that work that happens as well. You do that every day too. So appreciate you.
Hey, look, what we got to cut out. We work. We work. We work, and we are well deserved of the praise. So all to my sisters that are out there.
That's awesome.
You're wonderful.
So I want to tag off something. Raphael's out here, and he posted something about the fact that Stacey Abrams is a Spelman alum, and she's also from Mississippi, the heart of the Deep South.
Deep South.
And she said he said the greatest black people come from the toughest places for us to live. Okay. So I want to flip the script here for a minute. So, Mark and I always get into this thing about primarily white institutions versus HBCUs. All right. So you are a double graduate of Boston College, right? You did Boston College undergrad and you went to Boston College Law School. So when we went to BC in many, many, many years ago,
Okay.
when we were freshmen in 1987, the black student population of Boston College was 1/2 of 1%.
Yep.
There were I think 80 of us on campus. That was the total of black students that were on Boston College's campus. It was a big Irish Catholic school. As a matter of fact, the library at the time was named after Tip O'Neill, who was the
Right.
Speaker of the House. It was the O'Neill Library. The Kennedys who couldn't go to Harvard went to BC, right? I'm like, if you're a Kennedy and you can't get into Harvard, that's not good at all. So you wind up at Boston College. So they're now, black students are 4% of the black student population, but you sent me a video yesterday that was a little disturbing about some things happening on the campus. And I just want to put that in context. If you could share what you saw in the video, which was actually in the dorm that I used to live in years ago. But I want to talk about the experience of black folk HBCU versus primarily white institution. And you had a really interesting perspective on all of this being from Massachusetts. So I don't know, could you talk about what was in the video and then let's kind of go from there?
I think as I was looking at that video, it seemed to me that dorm, Xavier dorm, was being tossed. There was some vandalism that had happened there. And over the summer, as George Floyd and all the issues that were happening, the social unrest that was happening across the country, we saw, if you followed Black Twitter, you saw a lot of Black at, where young adults and alumni of different schools were coming at schools, whether it was a predominantly white high school or some of these higher education places, and they were calling it out. Black at Boston College, which has just been out there, Black at all these schools. And finally, kids of color and black students were sharing what happened, their experiences that had happened at these institutions, and a call to action to these schools to do something about it. And so BC's time was up, and it started, right? It started at Black at BC. And again, the same momentum and outrage that people have had. I mean, if you read it, you see people are not going to invest, and there's all this call to action to the administration to do something. So it is sad to see. We were the few, and as a lot of these schools, we become a very tight community as Black folks on the campus. And now to see that happening, 4% is still a ridiculously low amount of students. But to see this still happening is just infuriating. So I hope this Black at BC does get some momentum, because as I've seen at other schools, some schools, it's been taken all the way to the Board of Trustees, where they're looking at the head of these schools and they're saying, what is going on? And that's because we're on the Board of Trustees at some of these schools, that now we do have the power to say, we're tired of hearing these stories. And then I've also seen where schools have changed their policies. And there's one school right here where I am at, unfortunately, their Black at that school had some litigation that came out of it that really had to change their whole DEI and everything else that was happening on campus. So I'm excited to see it. It is sad to see, but I'm excited to see that the kids and alumni aren't taking it anymore. And, I will be definitely calling BC. As I think we talked about, my daughter will be going there in the fall. And I definitely want to have a conversation with the school. Well, what is going on? What are we going to do about this? Not to say that I won't send her. I will. I think I had a great education. But, yeah, we have to become more vocal. And as to the HBCUs, I was telling you, I grew up in Massachusetts in the Northeast, stayed to school here. I really didn't understand HBCUs till probably law school, when I met other students that had gone to those, because it was never an option. So it's always an interesting debate or discussion to have about where we are in the country, where we live, and where we have access to education. And nowadays, our kids have the option of learning about HBCUs, but are our schools on the Northeast in this part of the country really advocating for that? So it's still a lot of work that we have to do as Black folks to educate our young kids that it's an option. It's a very good option. And that's the beauty of seeing, our vice president and all these phenomenal women that are doing these things, and men that are accomplishing these things, because it does shine a light on HBCUs and a better understanding of them. But as Yeah,
I mean, it's actually interesting. When I was coming along, Yeah, I mean, we knew folk that went to HBCUs, but it was like not something that we ever really focused on, right? I wish I had gone to HBCU now. If
Right? In
nothing else,
retrospect, of course, but my parents were immigrants.
yeah.
They were like, look, we got you here. You just need to go succeed. And they were just like, we got you. We did our job. Like, let the schools and let everyone else tell you, your path. Yeah, just educating and not knowing about it. But nowadays, and I did think about it with my daughter, but I think, for me, it was like that first school, like, hey, let's go to where I went. And this is where we're at. And she did think about going to some of the schools, but it's competitive. It's just competitive as some of these other schools to go to. So it's very interesting. But I do think now people are looking at them. And even white people, I believe, are now starting to look at some of our HBCUs.
Well, actually, one of the HBCUs, Bluefield State, is now majority white. So it was a HBCU, and now it's in West Virginia. It's now a majority white institution because people from the area started going there. So I mean, there's been a takeover in some circumstances, and there are white students at both Howard School of Medicine and Meharry Medical School, right, which are institutions that were founded for Black folk to be able to go in the medical profession. And so we do see that happen, because they're good schools. Let's be honest. Some of these schools are fantastic schools to get education. I know my daughter is looking at both, primarily white institutions and HBCUs, and we're kind of up in the air about where she's going. I mean, I kind of feel like in this moment that we're living in, HBCUs are the safer bet for our children. But, she has to make that choice for herself. I mean, one of the schools that's on her list, she's already been accepted, is the Temple. And actually a few years ago, Temple University in Philly was selected as the best primarily white institution for Black students in America because it has a huge population of African American and Latin folks, Asian Pacific Islanders, indigenous folks. And so there's a large community for folk to be able to have that experience, and it's in one of the blackest cities on the East Coast. So, I think that is a part of this piece as well. So I think that's incredibly important. Well, look, we are up on our first break. And we are sitting in for the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler today is Antonia. I'll get ready to make you Reverend, but it's Antonia Torres Thompson. She is the president of her church administrative board, though. So she has that deep religious tie in all of this as well. You're listening to the Power Hour. We'll be back right after these messages.
WURD Radio celebrates Black History Month with Black Artist Story 365, brought to you by the Pennsylvania Lottery.
Welcome to Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. Get into this episode where we explore the art and artistry of revolutionary poet Nikki Giovanni. Yolanda Cornelia Nikki Giovanni Jr. was born in Knoxville, Tennessee to Yolanda Cornelia Sr. and Jones Gus Giovanni. In 1960, young Queen Nikki began her studies at her grandfather's alma mater, Fisk University in Nashville, as an early entrant. In 1967, she graduated with honors with a BA in history. In 1968, Giovanni attended a semester at the University of Pennsylvania and then moved to New York City. She was an active member of the Black arts movement beginning in the late 1960s. 1971's Ego Trippin' is one of Queen star Auntie Nikki's most famous pieces.
I walked to the Fertile Crescent and built the Sphinx. I designed a pyramid so tough that a star that only glows every 100 years falls into the center, giving divine, perfect light. I am bad.
1978's Cotton Candy on a Rainy Day is one of her other more noteworthy collections of poems. She and the late James Baldwin wrote a book together, did you know that? Titled A Dialogue. The two authors speak blatantly about the status of the Black male in the household. She published Those Who Ride the Night Winds in 1983. In 1988, volume Sacred Cows and Other Edibles, Acolytes, and On My Journey Now. There's also 2009's Bicycles Love Poems, Chasing Utopia, a Hybrid from 2013, and that's literally just to name a few. So that's it for this episode of Black Artist Story 365. My name is Envy McKee. To hear more, tune in to The Envy McKee Show, Friday nights, 7 to 10 p.m., right here on WURD.
Black Artist Story 365 is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Lottery. Get to winning with Win-Win, the new scratch-off from the Pennsylvania Lottery, with top prizes of $500 grand. Players must be 18 or older. Please play responsibly. Benefits older Pennsylvanians every day. Words from our past. WURD Radio celebrates the powerful voices of Black history. Malcolm X.
We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough. And it is because of our effort toward getting straight to the root that people oftentimes think we are dealing in hate. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us is come together against the common enemy.
Words from our past, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
Hello, my name is Andrea Delzell, and I've been using a wheelchair since I was 5 years old. If I had one message for the general public, it would be relax. Some folks get really flustered around disabled people, so they just pretend we're not there. I've actually had waiters talk to my companion and completely ignore me. People with disabilities just want the same respect and consideration as everyone else.
This is a message from United Spinal Association. Download our disability etiquette booklet at unitedspinal.org.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent Black media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. This is Dwayne Royster, and along with our special guest co-host today, Ms. Antonia Soares Thompson. Actually, I should say doctor. Tell me something. Why don't lawyers use doctor? Because they're doctors, Juris Doctorates, right? So why don't they? Is there a reason for that? I don't know. I just always wanted to ask that question. So,
I think some people do. A lot of people will use the Esquire, or they'll say attorney. I think with Dr. Biden, there was a lot of conversation about using titles, and I have seen people use the different titles. So I could, but I think most people are unused to attorney or the Esquire after when I sign my name. But I guess I could. Interesting.
What do you all call your professors in law school?
Just professor.
Okay, you don't call them doctor. They don't call them doctor. I mean, when we were undergrads, they used doctor, right? They all had PhDs, and they used doctor.
Well, the PhDs, I would think so. But no, we would just call them regular professors.
Okay.
Or maybe that'll change. Maybe they'll start using that title. And I just want to, as we talk about BC, and I think one of the things about Boston College and it being a Jesuit institution was there, and they continue to do that, being very invested in first generation. And so I think a lot of us that were of color that were at BC, it was that first generation programs and different things that they were doing at Boston College to bring that diversity. But again, when we think about it, it was for, Irish and other folks. Because remember, you go there and you'd see like 12 Murphys, 5, O'Briens, all from the same family. You're like, how does your whole family go to BC?
Right, absolutely. I got a question, and I know we got to get to the news and a couple other things, but you said something earlier that really impacted me, and it's something that we don't talk about, I think, enough on this station and in Black media in general. The immigrant movement has been dominated by Latinx faces, right? So folk from South America, folk from Mexico and Central America. And Mexico is actually a part of North America. We don't talk about the experience of Black immigrants, right? Your family, your mom and dad were immigrants here to this country. And I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about the Black immigrant experience. I mean, granted, this was, not in this particular moment, but this was, years ago. But, I mean, what was that like? I mean, your family's from Cape Verde, in Africa. Some of them claim Africa. So.
I'm just laughing at you say Cape Verdean. Yes, so the Cape Verdean Islands, the west coast of Africa. I think it's very challenging because I feel, there were 7 of us, and my twin and I were born here in the States. So definitely when my parents immigrated here, it wasn't like they checked their identity at the border, right? We were born in a Cape Verdean household with their traditions and their culture and their language. So trying to assimilate as a young child to, the community, a predominantly white community, but then still holding my parents' values in their home was very difficult. And I think that's similar to any immigrant family where their kids are trying to assimilate to the States. But I think it becomes a challenge because, my father, when he came here in the 60s, he wasn't Black. Like calling him the N-word, he's like, how am I your N-word? I'm not American. Like, I'm from Africa. The country, the place that I came from is only here because of slavery. It was an uninhibited 7 islands that because of the slave trade became the Cape Verdean Islands. So we are from all parts of the world. The ships would come in and then, we inhabited those islands. So we're all different from different places, but we're all Cape Verdean. It was colonized by the Portuguese. So that was a challenge because my father, he raised us to always be like this experience that he was going through in the States, clearly dark-skinned, was Black. Anyone looking at him was Black. He had his own identity. And I think if you look at Haitians, any other folks that are coming from Africa, different islands, there was that sense of culture, but it had to assimilate when you came to the States because of all the unrest that was here. So it was interesting debates to have with my father as we all got older and were more conscious in our community, and because we were Black, to have him understand that and understand that part of the history. And I don't think he ever did, God bless his heart. And I don't think people should check their identity at the border of where they're coming from, especially from Africa. So it is an interesting dynamic that I think kids have with their parents. You can pick any country where folks are coming from. And there's that sense of pride from where they come from. And more so when we were on campus, I mean, even now, whether you're Jamaican, you're this, you're that, there is a sense of pride of where you're coming from and the need for people to understand that history of, yes, where you come from, and then what is the history here in the States. So people, I remember at BC, I don't think anybody knew who Cape Verdeans were. People did if you were from Massachusetts, and they were like, are you Black? Are you Spanish? Like people even these days are like, oh, are you Spanish? And it's like, nope, straight up from Africa, 100% Black.
Yeah, I mean, in reality, you are African.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
100%
right.
African, right?
Yeah.
And which is funny because I had never heard of Cape Verde.
I know you didn't.
When I went to Boston College, I was like, where? Who? What? Never heard of this country. Never heard of these people. And it was a very distinct experience for me to learn about that. And so I just was curious about that. I wanted to ask about that.
Actually, I think you might have debated me on my Blackness. Not that I think about it.
I probably did. I probably would have been a part of the ADOS movement, the African Descendant Slavery movement, that would have had an issue. African immigrants at the time. Just know who I was back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Like your people did not taste slavery. You do not.
Yeah. It's like, really? Is that true?
My Black experience is. So I wouldn't. It was actually kind of funny when we were back at college. There was really 3 of us that hung out together. It was you, me, and our good friend. Oh my God, and Malka Ingram. Yes, I can't believe I forgot Malka's name. It's really, really bad because most people thought we were dating. So that was always a very interesting experience. We were not. We were friends, but we were not. So anyway, okay. So I take this to say I want to jump into something that happened in the news yesterday. The Democrats in Congress had a special order session that was organized by Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York to talk about their experience of the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. And, there were a series of Democratic legislators, because the Republicans didn't show up, that were talking. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Representative Sheila Jackson-Lee from Texas, who always has that beautiful crown on her head wherever she goes, the way she wears her hair. There were others that spoke, including Representative Dean Phillips from Michigan. This is a white guy. Now, Phillips spoke a little bit, and this is coming out of Huffington Post, which is really, this piece is powerful because he said something that was really, really deep. And he said that he had to recount how he had urged Democratic colleagues to mix in with the Republicans so that they might be safe from the right wing mob. Well, it's actually a white wing mob too, but it's a right wing mob. That they would mix in with the Republicans so that if the insurrectionists broke in, they would not necessarily attack them because they couldn't figure out the Republicans from the Democrats. But here's this thing, right? He said in this moment, though, I realized blending in was not an option for my colleagues of color. And he said, I'm sorry, for I have never really understood what privilege really means. That for the first time, he really understood what white privilege means. And that was really powerful in that moment. I think it was powerful, probably more powerful, listening to the stories of Rashida Tlaib, who was the first Muslim woman elected, who at that particular moment was not in the Capitol, but talked about the fact that as a black woman, she's received death threats every single day she has served in Congress. Every single day. She and Ilhan Omar gets multiple death threats daily. She's a Somali woman who is Muslim and makes no apologies for that. They were really trying to speak to their Republican colleagues who were not in the room at that particular time. The Cori Bush talked about, who is the new congresswoman from Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, who also happens to be a member of Black Lives Matter, was a Black Lives Matter activist and a nurse, and she got elected from that. And that she was in the House gallery when she left to see what all the noise was outside, and she saw a crowd approaching. She went to her office and watched on television as insurrectionists breached the doors. And she actually said to the Republicans, if we cannot stand up to white supremacy in this moment as representatives, then why did you run for office? This is painful to even have to read. And then Representative Mary Gay Scallion, who's from Pennsylvania, she's one of our congresswomen who actually borders Philadelphia. She had a letter signed by 400 congressional staff who sent a letter to the Congress because they often don't have a voice in the proceedings in the House, and really talking about their experiences and their fear. And unlike everybody else, I mean, the congressional leaders, right, they don't have the means to protect themselves, in terms of what's happening. This was very deep that this was happening. And yet, yesterday at the same time, the House voted to strip Marjorie Taylor Greene of all her committee assignments. They can't throw her out, although I think they should. But they voted because the Republicans refused to do anything because they just wanted to put a Band-Aid on a gaping open wound. They voted to strip her of all of her committee assignments. So basically the only thing she gets to vote for are bills that have already come to the floor. She can't testify in hearings. She can't ask questions. She's got no power. This is a deep moment for America. America's got to count for its nonsense. In the midst of all this, the House impeachment managers requested that Donald Trump testify at his hearing, and they said he refuses to testify at this
that would be something.
moment.
That would be something if they could get it up there and that man speak. He would be guilty in 5 minutes because he'd say something crazy. But to get back to that, I understand. I guess I get what he is saying about he's been woke as far as white privilege, but I don't buy it. I think what he saw is a lot of what people always say, oh, I don't see color. it's like, yes, you do see color, because this is a perfect example of it, right? The fact of color, you might have been able to blend where others weren't. So I don't buy what he's saying. I think it's more of note that that is the reality of how white folks have moved and how they've been able to camouflage and, you know, reap the benefits of all the things of them being white. So I hear what he's saying, but I don't necessarily agree with it. Because I think this is what bias and everything else happens all the time when they talk about people of color. So I don't buy it.
So say more about that. I mean, this is a guy that's saying, you know, I finally understood what it means to be black or brown in this country. You can't hide.
Understand there are more black. But there are more black people that are shot for ridiculousness as opposed to other white people that are doing the same offenses. There are more black folks that are imprisoned and getting harsher sentence than the other white folks that are doing the same thing. There are so many examples in our society of the disparity based on color.
But isn't it a part of privilege, though, that you can ignore that and dismiss it because it's not your experience?
Yeah, but I'm thinking this was a pretty traumatic situation that they were going through. And I feel for him to have that wake-up call only at this point of trauma, where it's easy for him to go this way and be safe and then look at all the other people that were kind of on the outskirts who weren't going to get that cover, right? The black person wasn't going to be able to shield himself with all the white people. I think it's ridiculous. Like, he's had plenty of time in this life to understand that. Yes, there are times where people don't understand their own biases, and it does need to be brought out and for them to see it. But to me, it's just sad that it took him this long to realize what we as people of color have been saying all along, right? All along. So I appreciate that he shared that. I just don't know how, hopefully it impacted him and it'll impact others. But as far as a black person hearing it, I'm like, oh, okay, because there's 50 other ways I could have showed you that shade, like in other ways of your life. But it was a traumatic situation, and it is a time where I think many of folks were called to the carpet to say, wow, this is really what it looks like. But I do agree with them. Those folks that were going in there, they weren't going to tell who was who. They didn't know who was a Republican, who was a Democrat. Absolutely. I believe that.
Well, let me just say, so Aunt Young agrees with you. Aunt Young says that he knew what privilege was before he went into that room. And Tawanda Stallworth says, I think we give him a nod for his acknowledgement. We've been telling white folk to get their people. He's attempting to do just that. So, yeah, this debate will continue on, but we are up on our next break right now. Sitting in for the Reverend Dr. Mark Kelly Tyler is Antonia Soares Thompson, and this is Dwayne Royster. We'll be right back after this break.
Attention WURD audience, do you know that you can get help with your PECO energy bill? PECO is here to help you with financial help through various assistance programs, including the PECO CAP program, which provides a monthly credit for eligible low-income customers based on the customer's total household gross income and energy usage. If you are experiencing financial hardship, you may qualify for the PECO CAP program.
And PECO Cares is the customer assistance and referral evaluation service designed to assist special needs, low-income customers who have a temporary personal or financial hardship that prevents the payment of your PECO energy bill. If you have a special needs child or adult in your care, your household may qualify for the CARES program.
Call 1-800-774-7040 today to see if you qualify due to an existing situation or a change in circumstances within your household. Call 1-800-774-7040 today for more information on the PECO CAP or PECO CARES program. PECO, powering our communities.
Jobs, entrepreneurship opportunities, small business resources, and financial literacy. Livelihood. The new initiative from WURD Radio to connect Philadelphians to resources to help take the next steps in their professional lives. WordWorks.com features career readiness tools, entrepreneurship resources, funding opportunities, and events to expand your livelihood. Visit WURDworks.com right now and take the next step in your professional journey. Livelihood is supported by the Nightland Fest's Local News Transformation Fund, Borealis Philanthropies Racial Equity and Journalism Fund, and the Solutions Journalism Network.
Tune in every Saturday at 4 p.m. for the Did You Know Show with host Bryant Green, right here on WURD 96.1 FM and 900 AM.
The Sports Segment. Tune in to Wake Up with Word, Mondays as Solomon Jones discusses all things sports with Shamar Woods, Director of Digital Sports for The Inquirer. Every Monday on Wake Up with Word, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media. Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Good morning. This report sponsored by Audible. Some volume picking up on the Schuylkill Expressway westbound. You're going to find a jamming at University through the Vine Expressway through the work zone eastbound. Heavy South Street through University. The Boulevard Route 1 southbound. Some light volume 9th Street down through Fox through that construction. Westbound Vine Parkway through the Schuylkill Expressway. Some slowing. Southbound 95. That jams Cotman down through Bridge. Again, Betsy Ross through Girard. Pennsylvania Turnpike eastbound. Pretty serious crash between Delaware Valley and the Turnpike Connector Bridge at mile marker 42.2. Watch for restrictions there as a result of that crash. Audible delivers the best audio entertainment all in one app. Choose a plan that's right for you and make it a year of Audible originals, best-selling audiobooks, popular podcasts, and more. Start listening free with a 30-day trial at audible.com. For more traffic information, log on to sigalert.com. Jim Bachman with your Philadelphia area traffic.
Now, a WURD weather update. Here's NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley.
Light rain showers moving through this morning. Might see a few snowflakes in. They'll melt as they hit the ground. The wet weather is out of here by later this morning, and the temperatures with some sunshine will break into the 40s, 44 the high later today. Clear and cold tonight, 27 the low to start with on Saturday. Sunshine, 42, a little bit breezy on Saturday, but no sunshine for Sunday. Clouds are back with a chance of accumulating snow and a high of 36. I'm NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Bill Henley with your most accurate forecast. Count on it.
You're listening to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent black media.
Welcome back to the Power Hour. This is Dwayne Royster, along with special guest co-host Antonia Soares Thompson. Hey, WURD family, have you signed up for your 4WURD membership yet? Join the 4WURD family today for access to special events, exclusive digital content, WURD swag, VIP invitations, discounts, and our printed newsletter, WURD Press. WURD values your support. We dedicate ourselves to providing the best news coverage for our listeners every step of the way. Please visit www.wordradio.com/4WURD for more details. Come on, y'all. Get your WURD membership and let them know you listen to the Power Hour every single morning, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to bring you the latest in news happenings around Philadelphia and, of course, our opinions. And we have plenty of them. Plenty of them. All right. We had to get to this one piece that Antonia sent me. I saw this last night. And do you want to talk about that real quick? Just bring that up.
Oh, my gosh. So, the SAG Actors Union...
The Screen Actors Guild, we should say that.
The Screen Actors Guild was, they were thinking, not thinking, but they, because of everything that happened with President Trump and the insurrection, they wanted to kick him out. And basically, I guess Donald Trump wanted to get ahead of that. And he felt that he needed to write a letter to them explaining why he was going to bow out. And it just was hysterical. And if you read it, his letter is typical him, right? Like he's basically saying, I did so much for this dying institution of cable news, but for my show, I saved and made tons of jobs for people. And at the end, I just think it's so childish. It's so him. I want to inform you of my immediate resignation. You have done nothing for me. And it's so funny because they were like, okay, thank you, was their response. They were just like, yep, okay, good. And just kept it moving. Poor guy, right? Well, no, we don't feel that bad for him, but it's just like everybody is coming in on him. He is finding no love anywhere, and rightfully so. But it's just he's still going on about how wonderful he is and how everything that he touched is gold. And it's just really, really hysterical.
Yeah, he made a crack at the president of the Screen Actors Guild. The SAG-AFTRA is the division of Screen Actors Guild. And because he said he didn't know what show she was in, but she certainly knew what show he was in. So talking about The Apprentice, and he kind of went through this whole list of all. Yeah, it was absolutely insane. Donald Trump's got issues. And so now let's go from anti-hero, talking about Trump, to some real heroes. So I want to jump on this. Listen to these names: William H. Barnes, Joseph H. Shea, Powhatan Beatty, Thomas Belcher, James H. Bronson, George H. Buchanan, Nathan Huntley Edgerton, Christian Fleetwood, James Daniel Gardner, James Harris, Thomas Hawkins, Alfred B. Hinton, Milton M. Holland, William Stone Hubble, Miles James, Franklin Jandro, Alexander Kelly, Nathan A. McCown, Robert A. Penn, Edward Ratcliffe, John Schiller, Ebenezer Skelly, Charles Veal, William Lang. In 1864, there was a battle to take Richmond out. And there were a group of troops, the U.S. colored troops, that were fighting a battle at Newmarket Heights in a place called Chaffin's Farms. They were fighting along with the Union Army when all the Union Army officers were killed. The leaders of the U.S. colored troops took on the fight, picked up the flag, and continued the battle. They fought hard. They fought bravely. They lost the battle that day. And in that particular battle, there were 391 killed, 2,317 wounded, and 649 captured of the U.S. Union troops and the U.S. colored troops. But they fought bravely and led both the Union Army and continued to lead the U.S. colored troops at the same time. Some of you know that the U.S. colored troop division was separated they separated the colored troops from that. These men that I listed, all who were former slaves or slaves who had joined the U.S. colored troops, were the first black men in American history to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Wow.
Among that 14, Edward Ratcliffe was my great-great-great-great-uncle.
Okay.
And a son of slaves that were from outside of Williamsburg, Virginia, in a place called Grove, where my family had been slaves. So I lift up that little-known black history fact today, that there are many of us that have in our families those folk that fought to defend and to fight for our freedom and our liberation from slavery. And these 14 black men who could have easily just walked away fought, some injured, some could have been scared for their lives, but they fought to go take Richmond, and so that we could be set free. And my great-great-great-uncle's Medal of Honor hangs in the African American Historical Museum in Washington, D.C. So that is my black history fact today, and I wanted to share that. All right, Kent Jewell, is it Kent that says, so proud of Robert A. Penn, he is family? All right, Kent. Well, we have we got some folk out there to share that together. These are little known facts, right? These are folk that actually made it so that we could be free. And they fought a battle when they could have turned and left. And many families in this country left their loved ones on the field dying. And, challenging for that. And so we needed to share these little known facts, things that people don't know about, they don't hear about, there's stories that are not told. And appreciate that. Every year there's a naval base right outside of Williamsburg that holds a ceremony to acknowledge my great-great-great-uncle for his contributions to the battle at Newmarket Heights. And we, family members go and participate in that. So, yes, Kateria, I said their names because we need to be able to pronounce their names. Thanks, Ken, for letting me know your name's pronounced July. So, you know, it's important for us to tell the story, to share the news. Many of us have folks in our families that are producers of Black history. So let's tell the story. Remember, we are the kings and queens. And so
Absolutely.
our folks have that lineage in our system. You were going to say that.
And I think it's beautiful when, and I had to learn this, you know, that capacity to go back and rebuild our history. You know, both my parents have passed, but I was lucky towards the end of my father's life to be able to go back and listen to his stories. And then, you know, we all work really hard to figure out our own family history. But what's really interesting is I took up quilting in COVID. And there's just, you know, beautiful quilts out there. So I just want to lift up the Gee's Bend quilt makers, who are amazing and fantastic and wonderful. And the Gee's Bend is a small, very small community in Alabama. And it's just fantastic, wonderful quilt making, but then the stories and the rich history behind it is just phenomenal. And it just opens up so many other parts of our history through something as simple as sewing and quilting, and just to learn how our culture has made the stories and the history through doing these things with our hands, you know, with fighting and so forth, it's just so empowering. And I just call on everyone, not just in February, but every month, to just go a little deeper and figure out and learn more about what our people have done, because every day I am amazed and just so excited to see us celebrated. It's just so joyful to see us celebrated. More so now because of things that have been happening in our country, but I'll take it. Any way that we have to get it, I'll take it and keep that ball moving forward. But it's good to hear these names and these stories, because we are a phenomenal people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just a reminder to folk, right, it's not just about reading about Black history, it's also about making Black history. And the generations, I mean, especially these last couple of years, our future generation, our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren will be reading about this moment in history books. One, who's going to tell the story? And it's important for us to make sure that we're telling the story, right? Because whoever tells the story tells it from their perspective. Donald Trump will do everything he can to make sure that the story is told wrongly. And so we have to make sure we tell the story right. But then the question will be, when your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren ask you about this moment, will you be able to tell them what you did, where you were? With the great marches, the great actions, the great movements, will you be able to tell them, I was there, I participated in that, I helped to change the world? Ultimately, that is what we are called to do every single day of our lives, to make this world a better place for our children, our grandchildren, our nephews, our nieces, the kids down the block. I end the show usually every day by reminding folk that it's our responsibility to go out and change the damn world, because if we don't, nobody else will. Well, beloved, this is your moment, your season. This is your chance to add your contribution to changing the world for Black folk, not just here in America, but for around the world. Will you seize it, and will you do it? On behalf of Antonia Saras Thompson, I'm Dwayne Royster. Thank you for joining us for the Power Hour today. Thank you, Kwesa, for holding the boards down. Everybody that joined us on YouTube, Facebook, all those that are listening on air and through the app, we deeply appreciate you. Stay tuned for the Stay tuned for Wake Up with Word with Solomon Jones. And listen, do it. Don't just think about it. Change the damn world so that all of us can be liberated and set free. God bless you.
Have a blessed weekend, everybody.
Peace.